Walk through Nike's Beaverton headquarters today, and you'll witness something unprecedented in sports marketing history. Caitlin Clark's face covers every wall. Her interlocking CC logo dominates every corridor. Security guards wear her jersey instead of standard uniforms. Employee break rooms play her highlight reels on endless loops. This isn't a partnership. This is a complete takeover of one of the world's most powerful athletic brands. But here's what nobody's talking about. As Clark's empire expanded inside those walls, another athlete's presence vanished completely. A'ja Wilson, two-time MVP and one of the most dominant forces in women's basketball, has been systematically erased from Nike headquarters. Her posters disappeared overnight. Her marketing materials got pulled without explanation. Conference rooms celebrating her achievements were repurposed to highlight Clark's statistics instead. Nike didn't just shift priorities. They rewrote their entire campus around one player while dismantling another's legacy. And the reasons why reveal everything about the brutal business calculations happening behind women's basketball's glossy surface. The question isn't whether this takeover happened. The evidence is overwhelming. The real question is what drove Nike to make such a dramatic, almost ruthless decision. And more importantly, what does this tell us about the future of athlete endorsements in women's sports? Many of you have been connecting these dots for weeks. Let's filter out the noise and examine what's actually happening inside the business of women's basketball. If you believe the story behind the story matters, hit that like button. It tells us we're on the right track with this investigation. Nike gave Clark something no WNBA player has ever received in the company's history: total creative control over their headquarters experience. When she arrives on campus, operations essentially stop. Executives drop whatever they're doing to accommodate her schedule. Design teams abandon ongoing projects to present her with prototype sketches. The company cafeteria stocks her favorite foods from Iowa during her extended stays. Recent footage that went viral showed Clark essentially shutting down normal business at Nike headquarters. Employees stopped working to watch her tour the facility. Design teams gathered around as she reviewed materials for her upcoming signature shoe. The entire building oriented itself around her presence. This level of access doesn't happen by accident. Nike made a calculated decision about where to invest their resources, their attention, and their future. But understanding Nike's gamble requires looking at what was happening simultaneously on retail floors across the country. While Clark was transforming Nike's headquarters into her personal kingdom, Wilson's signature shoes were being relegated to clearance bins at embarrassing prices. Walk into any major sporting goods store right now. You'll find Wilson's signature line buried in discount racks, often near the back where customers rarely venture. Foot Locker has them in bargain sections. Dick's Sporting Goods moved them to clearance bins. These shoes launched just months ago with tremendous fanfare. Nike expected them to revolutionize women's basketball footwear. Instead, stores cannot move inventory even at 50% discounts or more. The numbers tell a devastating story. Industry sources reveal Wilson's sales fell so far below projections that Nike executives began questioning whether future releases made any business sense. Her signature line generated less revenue in 6 months than typical Nike basketball shoes produce in 6 weeks. Think about that ratio. The company invested millions in Wilson's brand development, only to watch it crash spectacularly in retail environments nationwide. Nike's response was swift. They pulled all advertising support from Wilson's campaign weeks ago. Her commercials disappeared from television without announcement. Social media promotions stopped completely. The company shifted every single marketing dollar away from her signature line. Wilson's shoes now have to sell themselves without any promotional backing from the swoosh. Store employees confirm they receive weekly instructions to discount Wilson's inventory further. Regional managers desperately need that floor space cleared for upcoming releases. Wilson's shoes occupy premium retail real estate that stores need for products that actually move. Some locations have already relocated her entire signature collection to outlet sections permanently. Now contrast that with what's happening around Clark. Her player-exclusive colorways already dominate courts before her signature shoe has even launched officially. Retailers are placing orders for her 2026 signature line that exceed anything in WNBA footwear history. Pre-release demand has Nike scrambling to increase manufacturing capacity. They're preparing for a launch that could redefine women's basketball commerce entirely. The gap between these two athletes isn't just about sales figures. It's about something Nike's data analytics team recognized months before the general public caught on. Cultural impact, fan engagement, authentic connection. Clark generates social media interactions at rates that dwarf Wilson's numbers across every platform. Her content feels genuine rather than manufactured. When Clark posts, young fans respond personally. Wilson's online presence feels distant and corporate by comparison. Nike assembled an unprecedented roster of celebrity partners for Clark's promotional campaigns. Travis Kelce appears in her commercials. His brother Jason films content with her during Indiana Fever games. Travis Scott designed custom Clark merchandise. These partnerships cost Nike millions of dollars, but they showcase just how massive their investment in her brand has become. Industry veterans who've worked with Nike for decades say they've never witnessed anything quite like this corporate pivot. One longtime employee compared the atmosphere to only one other era in company history. The early days of Michael Jordan's partnership. That comparison alone tells you everything about how Nike views Caitlin Clark's commercial potential. But here's where the story gets more complex. You were onto something when you noticed that Nike's dramatic shift wasn't just about who sold more shoes. Reading between the lines of industry reports reveals a pattern of behavior that made Wilson increasingly difficult for corporate partners to work with. Multiple sources suggest Nike executives grew frustrated with Wilson's constant demands during campaign development. She criticized creative concepts without offering constructive alternatives. She showed up late to promotional shoots. She argued with photographers about technical details on set. Her negative energy infected entire production environments. Nike staff started requesting different assignments specifically to avoid working with Wilson. The situation became untenable when Wilson made public statements that created uncomfortable dynamics for corporate sponsors navigating complex social terrain. She suggested race-explained disparities in attention between herself and Clark, telling media outlets that it doesn't matter what black women do because they'll always be swept underneath the rug. She claimed it boiled her blood when people suggested race wasn't the primary factor. These comments put Nike in an impossible position. The company couldn't publicly disagree without appearing insensitive, but they also couldn't ignore how these statements affected their brand positioning. Corporate sponsors invest in athletes who expand their market reach, not athletes who create divisive narratives around their promotional campaigns. Clark's approach to brand partnerships stands in complete contrast. She arrives early to every Nike commitment. She collaborates enthusiastically with creative teams. She suggests improvements rather than simply criticizing existing work. Nike employees actively request assignments on Clark's campaigns because her positive energy elevates everyone around her. The difference in working with these two athletes became impossible to ignore. And it raises a question that many of you have been asking in the comments. Drop your thoughts below. When you see this kind of dramatic corporate shift, do you think it's purely about sales numbers? Or is there something deeper happening about how brands evaluate athlete partnerships in the modern era? Your perspective matters because this situation is reshaping how women's basketball gets marketed going forward. Nike's breaking point came when executives realized Clark's natural connection with fans exceeded anything Wilson could manufacture, regardless of budget. Connecting the dots reveals a pattern. Clark's social media engagement rates dwarf Wilson's across every measurable metric. Her fan interactions feel spontaneous and genuine. She responds to young fans personally. She shows up at events without publicists, managing every moment. Wilson's online presence, by contrast, feels calculated and corporate. The sports marketing world took careful notice as this dynamic played out. Wilson's jealousy over Clark's success became obvious to everyone around her. She made dismissive comments about Clark during WNBA media sessions. She questioned Clark's achievements when speaking with reporters. Her bitter attitude toward the league's rising star reflected poorly on her character in ways that sponsors noticed immediately. Other athletic brands pulled back from potential deals they had been discussing with Wilson. Her behavior created a pattern that companies no longer wanted anywhere near their products. Wilson's reputation for being difficult spread throughout the industry faster than she could control. She created a toxic personal brand that corporations actively avoided. Nike executives watched Wilson's public behavior and grew increasingly uncomfortable associating their brand with her image. Other WNBA players started distancing themselves from Wilson's negativity. Teammates avoided defending her controversial statements publicly. Fellow players stopped inviting her to group activities. Her isolation within the league reinforced Nike's decision to move away from her brand entirely. The business case had become crystal clear. Wilson's demands for equal treatment revealed her fundamental misunderstanding of how sports marketing actually works. She expected Nike to match Clark's budget, despite her catastrophic sales performance. Her team argued for promotional parity without acknowledging the massive difference in demonstrable fan appeal. Nike executives realized Wilson lived in complete denial about her actual market value. Here's what we're getting into rumor territory about, but multiple sources are whispering about this. Wilson allegedly confronted Nike executives directly about the headquarters transformation. She reportedly demanded explanations for why her materials were being removed. She questioned why Clark received creative control she never had access to. These confrontations allegedly became heated enough that Nike assigned legal counsel to monitor future interactions. If these reports are accurate, Wilson fundamentally misread the situation. She treated her Nike partnership as an entitlement rather than a business relationship requiring mutual value creation. She assumed her MVP trophies guaranteed promotional support regardless of market performance. She failed to recognize that brands invest based on return, not resume. Clark understood something Wilson never grasped. Modern athlete endorsements aren't about what you've accomplished. They're about what you can deliver for the brand. Championships matter, but cultural relevance matters more. Statistics impress, but authentic fan connection drives purchase decisions. Wilson brought accolades. Clark brought movement. The physical transformation of Nike headquarters tells this story in brutal clarity. Every inch of that campus now belongs to Caitlin Clark. Wilson's former design consultation room became Clark's private studio. Her promotional photo gallery transformed into Clark's achievement timeline. Even Wilson's reserved parking spot got reassigned to Clark's team. The building itself became a monument to Nike's shifting priorities. But the most revealing detail: Nike employees who worked with both athletes prefer Clark unanimously. They describe Wilson as demanding and difficult. They characterize Clark as collaborative and energizing. When your own promotional team would rather work with your competitor, that tells brands everything they need to know about long-term partnership viability. The contrast extends beyond personality. Clark actively participates in product development. She tests prototypes during actual games and provides detailed feedback. She understands materials and construction techniques. She asks intelligent questions about manufacturing processes. Wilson reportedly treated design sessions as obligations rather than opportunities. She showed minimal interest in technical specifications. She focused primarily on aesthetic details rather than performance innovations. Nike's 2026 signature shoe for Clark represents the culmination of this collaborative approach. Industry insiders suggest it features revolutionary technology that Clark helped develop through hundreds of hours of testing and iteration. The shoe isn't just carrying her name. It embodies her actual input and expertise. Wilson's signature line, by comparison, was essentially a cosmetic variation on existing Nike designs with minimal athlete involvement. The sports marketing world is watching this transformation with fascination because it challenges long-held assumptions about athlete endorsements. For too long, companies assumed the formula that worked for men's basketball would translate directly to women's sports. Sign the best player, attach their name to a product, watch sales follow. Wilson's disaster proved that assumption catastrophically wrong. Clark represents something fundamentally different. She brings genuine charisma that can't be manufactured through marketing campaigns. She maintains authentic connections with her fan base that transcend typical athlete-supporter dynamics. She understands that modern athletes need to be collaborators rather than just endorsers. She shows up early, works hard, treats people well, and delivers measurable results. These qualities matter as much as scoring averages in today's sponsorship landscape. The lesson Nike learned will reshape women's basketball commerce for years. Talent alone doesn't drive sales. Championships don't guarantee fan engagement. MVP trophies don't automatically translate to retail success. The market rewards athletes who understand that endorsements are partnerships requiring mutual value creation, not tributes owed to the talented. Wilson's behavior created the exact situation she desperately wanted to prevent. Her jealousy and difficult personality pushed Nike directly into Clark's embrace. The basketball world watched her destroy her own opportunities through petty behavior and professional immaturity, while Clark simply kept working, kept collaborating, and kept building genuine connections with fans who actually wanted to support her. Nike's gamble on Clark looks increasingly brilliant as each day passes. Her pre-launch numbers exceed anything in women's basketball history. Her cultural presence transcends the sport entirely. Her partnerships with major celebrities expand her reach into demographics that traditional basketball marketing never touches. She represents the future Nike has been searching for since they first recognized women's basketball's commercial potential. Clark's 2026 shoe launch will establish her as women's basketball's undisputed commercial queen. The technology she helped develop will influence Nike's entire basketball division for years. Her collaborative approach proved why companies invest in character and personality alongside athletic achievement. The game has always been bigger than what happens on the court, and Clark understands that reality better than any women's basketball player before her. This story isn't finished. Nike has placed its biggest bet yet, and the entire industry is watching to see if this unprecedented investment pays off. But if you want to understand where women's basketball is heading commercially, watch what happens next with Caitlin Clark, because she isn't just changing shoes, she's changing the game, the market, and the way we think about athlete influence in sports. Before you go, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. We're tracking every development in this story as Nike prepares for what could be the biggest signature shoe launch in WNBA history. Next up, we're investigating exactly what technology Nike developed specifically for Clark's 2026 release, and why insiders are calling it revolutionary. You won't want to miss it. Until then, keep questioning what you see, because the real story is always deeper than the headlines.